two fellows in the Soviet Union were walking down the street, and the one of them says, "Have we really achieved full communism? Is this it? Is this now full communism?" And the other one said, "Oh, hell no, things are going to get a lot worse."
Insanity is becoming the new normality.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
The 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
This is the Brian Suits Show.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. AM 770 KTT's Brian Suits. You heard the great Ronald Reagan, who there's a bunch of great montages of his communism jokes, and he could drop them. It was like he numbered them. Like, oh, I'm gonna go with 4, and then 3, and then I'm gonna go back to 7, and they were great. They were great jokes, and what was never explained by most people who maybe you grew up with Reagan, you saw him, telling the communism jokes, is that those jokes were all from Russia. They were not. Americans in the 80s weren't writing Russia's communism is so bad jokes.
Well,
we got to own Reagan.
It was a brilliant political maneuver by Reagan in the 80s because it was a way for him to align with the Russian people but rip on their leadership.
Yeah, because Russians were saying, oh, yeah, he was repeating jokes that I heard when I was, younger, and it was all the jokes were about the lines you had to stand in, and all that. One of the classic ones was two guys were in a line for bread in Moscow, and it's 1989, and the one guy says, "God, I hate that Gorbachev. I'm going to go kill him." So he leaves the line, goes to the Kremlin. A couple hours later, he's back. And his buddy says, "Did you do it? Did you kill Gorbachev?" And he goes, "No, that line was longer." Then the one that's just classic, and this has become part of my lexicon. Whenever anyone says, and this is the thing about the long appointment waits for doctors or veterinarians right now with the COVID. That's why I always say, so she says, "How's December of 2022?" And I say, "Morning or afternoon." Because that's a old Soviet punchline. And the joke was a guy finally saves his money, gets enough money for a car, puts the deposit down, because the way you couldn't just buy a car in the old Soviet Union. So he decided on a red Lada. He puts the deposit down in January, and the guy says, "Okay, you'll have it in November, on November 22nd. And it's January. And the guy says, "Morning or afternoon?" And the car salesman says, "What difference does it make?" And he goes, "Well, the plumber's coming in the morning." See, because it was that inefficient in the old Soviet Union.
The way you deal with dictators and despots is to poke fun at them.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, and we need more of that during this time because despots have no sense of humor.
She hates Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
He bans it. If you're behind the Chinese firewall, and which again, they insisted to get the internet, they had to be able to filter absolutely everything. So they did. They have an algorithm for searches for Pooh, Winnie, Winnie Pooh, Pooh, Winnie, for the image, the whole thing. He hates that comparison. And that comparison came from him walking next to Obama, where Obama was all, tall and thin. And then there's she with his pot belly and his pants pulled up to the pot belly. And he's flinging his legs out. He does, and he hated that. It was the comparison was Winnie the Pooh standing next to Tigger. And it was, so he gets back and he says, "Yeah, I want to eliminate that. Anything online, any mocking, the whole thing." And Putin's the same way. He takes it personal. Somebody hacked. There's a global satellite tracking system for ships and yachts. And you can go to, I think, shiptracker.org or whatever. And somebody hacked the code for Putin's yacht. And they redid it, re-registered it as the letters FCK space PTN. And so it was up for a couple hours. And these days, all you need is a screenshot. It doesn't matter if they change it back in 10 seconds. You just need that screenshot.
Speaking of yachts, there was a great news story in the last 72 hours about that Ukrainian mechanic who sunk that Russian oligarch's yacht. And I think he was either brought before some authorities or a judge, and he said, "I regret nothing."
Yeah. In Mallorca, Spain, The 48 meter, I believe that's about 10 gallons, right? 157 feet. The Lady Anastasia, which belongs to Rosboron Export, Director General Alexander Mikheyev, which is, by the way, their arms export agency. And of course, Mikheyev is a former communist official, and when the whole thing went bluey, he became the chairman of Rosboron Export. And so anyway, it was docked in Mallorca, Spain. The mechanic opened the valves in the engine room and sank the damn thing. And so he's out on bail. Isn't that hilarious? There was a video. He said there was a video of a helicopter attack on a building in Kyiv. They were attacking innocents, and so he attempted to scuttle Mr. Mikheyev's yacht after watching news reports. So that's hilarious. Local hero right there.
Out on bail, give that guy a reward.
Yeah. And so the latest out of Ukraine, for our immediate future purposes, the UN is actually going to have an emergency session of the General Assembly, which is meaningless, but they're going to have it anyway. And the president is on a secure phone call, and the State of the Union's tomorrow night. And then Putin over the weekend, if you didn't consume any news. Hey, guess what? A person was shot in downtown Seattle last night. We'll get to that. And ironically, violence outside the Ukrainian Piroshki store. But that more. And I'll give you a status update of what's going on. Another event today to watch out for is that the adjoining nation of Belarus is about to join the war, and because that's how badly it's going. And also in the tell me you're losing to a non-nuclear power without saying you're losing to a non-nuclear power, Vladimir Putin supposedly ups his nation's nuclear forces a notch. We'll get to that in a second. AM 770 KTH. Brian says here, let's get you to work with our right-way traffic. Thank you very much, John. AM 770 KTTH, the text line 800-465-8770. There were some great, by the way, producer Greg along for the ride and taking the blame. You don't have to take the blame.
No, I do have to take the blame. I'll try to make it a clean show from here on out.
Awesome. He took the blame. So their jokes came out of Nazi Germany. There were some in the 20s and 30s, out of Russia, but we only know that, after the fact. In the 30s, Hitler jokes came out of Germany, and some of them are really funny. You just need the context. You want to hear? And now I have this in mind. I'm not going to be able to move on unless I tell you this. So Robin Williams is doing the press junket in Europe for Jumanji, the first Jumanji movie. I never saw it, that came out, whatever, in the 90s, right? And they're in Germany. And a German reporter asked him in English, well, why do you think Germans have a reputation for being humorless? And Robin Williams said, because you killed all the funny people.
Right.
Really did. Really did. It's okay to laugh at that because it was meant to be funny. And it was funny. So even the Germans said there was uncomfortable laughter. So your sit rep here for Ukraine is like I said last week on day one of this, it was really obvious on day one that something is broken with the Russian army. They achieved none of their day one objectives, and the entire thing is now delayed. As we speak, there is a E-8, a J-STARS, which is a ground surveillance aircraft, and it's doing racetracks in Poland. But it's if you get out your maps when you get to work, or if you roll over and grab your phone and open up Google Earth, there's on the eastern Polish border, Belarus and Ukraine, they all meet in a sideways T. And the Belarusian, and I mean, it's right down, it's as granular as we can identify the unit. The Belarus army is poised to invade western Ukraine, possibly to cut off any resupply by NATO, which we've been hearing all day long. All weekend long, right? That even Luxembourg is sending 100 anti-tank rockets, and all this. Well, how are they going to get in there? They're not flying in because Russia has unilaterally declared a no-fly zone. They would have to go in by land, and so it stands to reason because Belarus is in debt to Putin. That Putin calls in his markers, And he's telling Lukashenko, look, in for a penny, in for a pound. Belarus already allowed Putin to invade from their soil. They're as de facto at war as they possibly can be. And so we're right now, NATO and U.S. aircraft are looking directly into Belarus sideways from Poland. And there's several other surveillance aircraft that are doing their job, including a E-3 Sentry that's over Romania and or Hungary, and keeping an eye. And by the way, when I'm telling you this, I have zero doubt that we're liaising and giving all this information directly to the Ukrainian military, and I would frankly be surprised if there was not a Ukrainian liaison on the aircraft, because, I mean, short of injecting NATO troops, which is politically unacceptable in the United States and for most of Europe, this sort of support is the thing that you do. So NATO has this capability, and it's providing it to the Ukraine. I've got zero doubt. And so the Ukraine, there are various layers of their military, their active duty regular army, their reservists who've been called up, and then even the civilians that are just picking up weapons are blunting the Russians everywhere they go, because, and this is my takeaway from last week, and I forget when it was. I forgot, producer Greg, I don't listen. Was I saying, was it Monday? Or, was it Thursday that I was talking about the indication that what I was seeing, the evidence that I was seeing tells me that somebody is not briefing Putin on the state of his army.
Yeah, I'm not sure which day it was, but I know for a fact that you said it.
Yes.
And, I was glued to social media and cable news for most of the weekend. And there's lots of rumors about Putin's mental faculties perhaps not being in the greatest shape. The Russians released a picture of Putin in a meeting with the top military brass, which he didn't look well, and it was another long table where they were about 30 feet away from him.
And you know what? On Russian TV, when that meeting was shown, all they did was they cut from a tight shot of Putin, in a suit and tie, to his two generals, to Shoigu and Gerasimov. And it looked as if they're all at the same table, but Putin doesn't meet with people that close unless they just tested negative or whatever. And this is, we found this out when Macron went there 2 weeks ago and declared that, that Putin told him that there would be no escalation or whatever. But Putin said, well, you need to test 7 hours before you meet me and blah, blah, blah. And Macron refused to. And so that's why that photo that the Russians released was Macron out of focus in the foreground, a big hulking Macron, and then Putin far, far away, but in focus.
It's such a striking juxtaposition between Putin and his closest allies and President Volodymyr Zelensky. And what's coming out from him. This thing is all unfolding in real time, live streamed and on social media. I think it's one of the reasons that you've seen such a hastening of unity in Europe and in the United States in sentiment towards being pro-Ukrainian. And it's very striking. It's the first world conflict of this magnitude and size in the last 80 years that is happening just like that, so quickly. Yeah. Developments. There was this emotional plea from Zelensky on a phone call with European leaders about how he wanted to be included in the European Union. He was saying the future of Ukraine is European. We want to be included in this, and freedom and democracy. And then almost overnight, millions, even billions of dollars pouring into Ukraine from these European countries. Germany is rearming. They're committing 2% of their GDP per year to rearm.
It's funny because, you have this guy, a 5'6" TV comedian, and he's leadership shaming everybody in Europe and two people in North America. And the guy's really showing, how to be a leader. It's astounding.
And don't forget that Zelensky won Ukrainians Dancing with the Stars. I'm not kidding. I watched a video of it over the weekend.
Yeah. And you talk about snarkasm when, I don't know who released this or why it was in the public domain, But when they said that, the United States has advised Zelensky to leave, he said that at a press conference, and they said, well, what did you say back? And he said, I told them I need ammunition, not a ride. And it's astounding because, and this is, if you don't know this, Putin puts as much importance on footage or stills of a dead Zelensky in the street as much as he does taking Kiev. He wants that guy dead, like Robert De Niro in The Untouchables. He wants him dead with a knife. He has guys who have more important military objectives that they could be going after. He's detoured them, and he has said, flood Kiev with our guys. That midget is walking around, cracking wise, being brave, inspiring people. Get him, kill him. Don't we have anyone close to him? The whole thing. He's making it like a priority mission.
Vladimir Putin's 5'7", and so is Zelensky, from what I've researched here in the last 10 seconds. But I think if that is Putin's calculation, I think it's a gross miscalculation, because if Zelensky does die in this conflict, I think he becomes a martyr for the cause of freedom and democracy, and it even further will rally Western countries in support of Ukraine.
So that's your update. It looks very much like Belarus is going to enter the conflict sometime in the next couple hours. The United States and NATO are doing intense surveillance on that border area, and that would bring a new element. And what about the nuclear alert? What does it really mean? We'll talk about it when we come back in a second. And where can you get a good pierogi in downtown Seattle? Well, not on 3rd Avenue anymore. Where can you get some awesome fentanyl? Well, right in front of Pierogi on 3rd Avenue, but you just can't go in there and get a pierogi. That and more. It is AM 770 KTTH. Brian Suits here, back in